Hey Ellie, it's Mr. Lay. I thought it'd be easier for me to show you what you need to know in the periodic table instead of just sending a study guide, so I made this short video. First thing you need to know is that the up and down columns on the periodic table, like I'm circling right here, are called groups. And we number the groups going across the top from left to right. 1, 2, and then you're going to need to skip this middle section, and we're not going to number that middle section. And then we're going to start here with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And all of the groups on our periodic table have something in common. They all have the same number of valence electrons. So all of the elements listed in group 1 has one valence electron. So hydrogen, lithium, sodium, all have one valence electron. Group 2 all has two valence electrons. Then we skip over to group 3. All of these elements have three valence electrons. This whole column or group has four valence electrons, and so on, all the way to this group, which has 8 valence electrons. Remember, valence electrons are the ones that are on the outside of the atom. Next thing you need to know is we can also label things going across the periodic table. For example, I can circle this entire, and sorry for my circle being messy, but this entire row going across. We call those periods, and that's a really bad circle, so I'm going to try to redo that. But the entire thing going across, so this is a period. And all the periods have something in common too, another property. And it has to do with the number of shells. And remember when we drew Bohr models, we drew shells. And each period has the same number of shells. So starting at the top, this group will all have one shell. So I'll just draw one shell. The next group, the next period will have two shells. So 1, 2. And the next one would have 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on down the periodic table. And where these properties are really useful is I can tell you how many valence electrons and how many shells have just based on where things are on the periodic table. So for example, let me pick an element, and I'm going to just pick xenon, atomic number 54. There it is. And just based on its location, I know that since it's in group 8, it has 8 valence electrons. And I can also tell how many shells it has just by counting down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know xenon will have 8 valence electrons, and it will have 5 energy shells. And so that's one way the periodic table is organized. The next thing that you need to know is you need to know 4 different families on the periodic table. And the first family that you need to know is this family right here. And they're called the alkali metals. And they all have one valence electron. The next family that you need to know is this middle section that I skipped over. And this middle section, the second family or group that you need to know, is called the transition metals. The third one that's important to know is this group, group 7. They're called the halogens. And the last group here, in group 8, which is the fourth main one that I want you to know, is called the noble gases. So those are the 4 families that I want you to know. A few other properties about the periodic table that you may need to know for the test. I'll change to a different color. The last 2 periods that are located down here at the bottom of the periodic table are called the lengthenide and actinide series. And these are important, that you just know where they are. Know that they're located at the bottom of the periodic table. The other thing that you might need to know is what are these green elements that are located along this staircase that I'm drawing right now. Starting at that top, I'm just going to come down just like this. And these green ones are called metalloids, and they have properties of both the metals and the nonmetals, because on this side of the periodic table, everything to the left of that staircase is where I'll find metals. So I'm just going to put an M for metals. And on this side of the staircase, all of these elements are nonmetals. So I'll put an NM for non-metals. So those are the key things that I want you to know about the periodic table. And I'm going to send a separate study guide that has a few other things that I think would be important for you to know. But the key thing is you have to know where everything is on the periodic table to do well on this test. So remember, groups go up and down and tell you the number of valence electrons, Periods go side to side and tell you the number of shells. Metals on the left of the staircase, non-metals are to the right. This first group here, alkali metals. The second group, transition metals. The third group, halogens. And the fourth group, noble gases. Hope this helps.